judges for that prize, which is Jennifer Mervin and Adam Vines. So stay tuned on all that for the spring. And again, welcome and thank you for being here. And I'm going to go ahead and bring up Deshawn and Courtney, who will be introducing Joy Priest.
Hello, my name is Deshawn Courtney. After reading Horsepower in class, I was hooked by its metaphysical aura and stark imagery, and pointed history. This collection is full of fruitful emotions and stories, and here's an excerpt from one of my favorite pieces from the book titled Upon Reading James Lipton's An Exaltation of Art. When he says, a woman who makes me work for it, he is talking about his desire, fixed on the chase, a fawn caught in the clearing of his iris. So close to kill, a loot of little bits. Joy Priest is the author of Horsepower, selected by U.S. Poet Laureate Natasha Trethewey as the winner of the Donald Hall Prize for Poetry. She is the recipient of the 2021 National Endowment for the Arts Fellowship, a 2019 to 2020 Fine Arts Work Center Fellowship, and the Stanley Kunis Memorial Prize from the American Poetry Review. Her poems have appeared in the Academy of American Poets Poem a Day series and The Atlantic, among others, as well as commissions for the Museum of Fine Arts Houston and the Los Angeles County Museum of Art. Her essays have appeared in the Village Southerner, Poets and Writers, ESPN, and The Undefeated. Priest received her MFA in Poetry with a certificate in Women and Gender Studies and from the University of South Carolina. She has facilitated poetry workshops with incarcerated juvenile and adult women and has taught creative writing, comedy, gender and sexuality, and African American arts and culture at the university level. Joy is an MD Anderson Foundation Fellow and a doctoral student in literature and creative writing at the University of Houston. She is the editor of Once a City Said, a Louisville Poets anthology forthcoming from Sarah Band Books in 2023. This is Joy Priest. Thank you.
I'm very experienced in having to do that. I'm glad no one ran up, because I know what I'm doing. I have to do it every time. All right. Deshawn, thank you so much. I love the word metaphysical. I love that you associated with this book, and I love that you chose that poem to excerpt, because I never read it, and I'm not going to. It is a poem for the page, but you made it sound good. We're starting with new poems. As a request to Taneum. These are my new books. I don't know the order. Correct. The Black Outside has an epigraph by Sadia Hartman. The enclosure is so brutal. The jazz, it puts you on a swing in your project neighborhood, where you learned the antithesis of ownership, where you learn to live with the loudness of your neighbor's living. It brings an ecology of sincerity, the thought of the black outside. And you believe the hollowed out trunks, the treehouse of our speech, the way we say things. Had to quit carrying on with folks who don't have a history of being hidden or community plumbing issues. Done with jazzless folks who ask why you still have feelings. You're being wayward with us now in the black outside, the jazz. It puts you on a swing in the gentry's neighborhood, which used to be your neighborhood, where you pinned your personality on a shared clothesline, where you placed your speaker in the courtyard window to bring us out. On a swivel now in the bureaucratic fabric, on a walk you've taken to escape, the mind so close to itself it cannot see itself, like the eyes above the nose, what doesn't pursue you. Now you are even after yourself, on that walk all the way to WA, back down worrying about the way you look, feeling unstable on the inside, you write from above yourself. And on in Van Buren, when you turn back toward Montrose Boulevard, there it is, an olive Buick stalled in the median, and suddenly you are in the black outside. Dear beloved in the future, are you still maroon? Lover, are you there? Am I there too? So this next poem is like the newest poem I wrote like last week. And the title is sort of the prompt, which is When I See the Stars in the Night Sky. And it comes from this essay that I transcribed from Ocean Vuong's IG story when they were like doing a short lecture on metaphor. And they talked about the phrases that I love that they used was how figurative language, the figurative language that an individual poet uses reveals an autobiography of sight or a DNA of seeing. The idea that like the specific idiosyncratic metaphors that you make are specific to you and your biography. And then they ended that slide with the prompt, what does it say about a person who sees the night skies and the stars in the night sky as exit wounds? So I just wanted to write a poem about how I see the stars in the night sky. And I really have been wanting to write a poem about Whitney Houston, who I love so much. So this is called When I See the Stars in the Night Sky. When I see the stars in the night sky, I've never read this poem before. I don't know what to do. Okay. When I see the stars in the night sky, I see Whitney, her sequin glamour. It's 1988. She's center stage, her head thrown back against the black backdrop. She is the only thing glowing, so distant from us in the universe of her voice. She is already dying when I hear her sing the first time. When I slip inside my rhinestone leotard white tights before a mic, my vocal cords are still elastic, vibrating heartstring, not yet sclerotic with unlovely smoke and shame. I'm drawn to Whitney like a cardinal on a branch in winter, beauty too bright for camouflage. Her story, a constellation twin with mine. I love myself because of her. Our sweet lips sweat sparkling in the flame light. I went home inside myself too. The world became so small, secrets collapsing my life into a vacuum. To burn a little longer, Whitney, you know, no one is coming. You must save yourself. Looking for poems. Have no table of contents. Okay. This is a poem requested by Taneum. Y'all, this is crazy. I have me and Taneum have a long history. We go way back. So I'm really excited to be reading with her for her second book. I've been with you in the gym since the chapbook. So if you don't have it, you know, it's a collector's item at this point. My first kiss was in a choir room. I grew up in church and I sang a lot. So I sang in the choir at church, I sang in the choir at school. And in the new work, I just wanted to bring music in a little bit more. My first kiss was in a choir room where we hung the white robes. It was the drummer, it was the drums. My first kiss was with a girl who shared a name with my older sister in the strip club on the corner that held women like secrets. My first kiss was French for already, the first word in the phrase already seen. Voo, voo, voo. In the sun-striped Sunday room in us white robed. My first kiss was innocent, the way animals are innocent. Holy, the way blood is holy. My blood beat was the drummer, it was the drums. I entered suddenly and forever. Sister, my sister, and me already seen. That's how it felt. Our sun-striped skin, the faint piano, the robes hum up. All right, so I love women that play the bass. I love seeing a woman playing the bass. It feels like it feels like an instrument that's like, I don't know, maybe I don't know why I have this feeling, but I feel like it's like an instrument that people don't feel like women play. But I love seeing that, and so like I have always wanted to play the bass. You know, it's the instrument that I'm drawn to, and so I started teaching myself a few years ago. And while I was teaching myself, you know, when you're learning like the strings of an instrument, there's a what's the word for like the mnemonic, you know, mnemonic devices to remember what string it is. And for the bass, then I like found one that was like Eva 8 Dynamite good. And I was like, that's too good, like, gotta use it. Bass, EADG. Eva 8 Dynamite good, like a tear gas brigade on a runaway night. Her genre, black meadow. Her sound, maroon. Her imitators pale as any cloud in the versal world. Eva already done got down. Eva already done got it worked out, like a remedy for terror in our new carceral courtyard. My favorite little agitator, my pluck, my thread of mind. Eva ain't dim gas. Eva ain't devil, ain't dust, always dropping goods. Eva always grieving drums. Goodness gracious, Eva ain't dynamite good. Eva armed defense garland, departed genealogy escort, sliding nose, paraffin, fret fingers. Eva ain't doggone. Yeah, y'all hear what I did there? The EAD, y'all didn't hear it. Y'all catch it on the way home. Okay, another request from my host. This is the abecedarian. How do you explain this thing? Each line starts with a letter. It's like the alphabet successively, so A to Z. Does that make sense? That's what you like? Okay. Abecedarian for Alzheimer's. Angel was my papa's girlfriend when he died. Back there in my memory, I hear my mother fussing about condoms. In age, she is saying, the girl is only 25 and black. My daddy, amused at the irony of racism, whispering to me, he's at his end anyway. Angel was stripping at Deja Vu when he moved her into the front bedroom, and this is where I began to realize what precisely was going on. He couldn't remember me, but by then he was forgetting who he was too. Outside the club, next to our world-famous horse racing track, the infamous sign read, Win Place Show Bar, 99 pretty girls and one ugly one. A jab at Angel, their only dark-skinned dancer. She mystified them with her kaleidoscope of color contacts and quick leaves. They loved her equine legs. I loved her for telling my secret loud, for making a messy joke of him and my mother the way I felt they had made a mess of me. After Angel moved in, I never saw him again. My mother avoided his street. She could not get over the hypocrisy. How he disowned her when I was born, then made her promise not to speak of my blackness, my father to me. Buried whole of quiet lies they dug for years before it opened beneath the two of us and ruined everything. Maybe my mother envied Angel because she saw the truth of him out. And when he began forgetting to hate us, to put his white hood on every day, Angel used him the proper way. I like to think of her as Veritas, the goddess at the bottom of that empty well, naked and holding a hand mirror. Or maybe it was me, a xeric unblooming thing down there beneath them. I had for years been taught to live that way, black, unassuming, zipped up in history, a disease not even progress can cure. So if you know Louisville, there's one thing that you probably know about Louisville, which is oh, all right. Well, you should know that. That's a good. That's a generational thing too. What else do you know about Louisville? Huh? What'd you say?
Horse race track.
Yeah, the horse racing. That's what I thought y'all was gonna say. But my friend here is very knowledgeable about Louisville. Yes, the horse racing. So that is like the main event. That's like the event associated with Louisville that the world knows about globally, I would say. But if you live in a tourist city or a city that hosts like some, huge tourist thing, there's always these like peripheral traditions and celebrations that don't make the news. And one of those is Black Louisville when I was growing up, that it doesn't happen anymore, but the city would block off Broadway, which is like the main thoroughfare downtown, and we had what we call cruising. So everybody would bring their vintage cars out, and just like cruise up and down, and people were barbecuing, there'd be booths. It was very like freak naked Atlanta. Some people would be naked. Everything went for these 2 nights, this weekend. It don't happen anymore. So this is like just, archiving that tradition. And adding it to the mythology of the city. God of the Motorcade, 2005. In Louisville, from a sidewalk turned sideline on West Broadway, I catch my beloved, absent for weeks now, leading a cortege of Chevelles through the chaos of revelers, as earlier that day children led their handmade floats around a grade school derby parade. As he comes toward me, so too does a throat-dark woman carrying past the scent of coconut. Her naked breast glistens slick as the skin of his convertible coupe. My eyes, lit up at him, know why he chooses this very spot to turn the chain of revving beasts through a slow U. Picture the neon at New Year. Now, his headlights flooding across my red velour rocawear dress, and for a moment you can see I am the one. Rumor has it, the beast's weakness is an aversion to loud noises, fear of the color red. We are all too familiar with this combination myths that we are, even this night on the main thoroughfare of River City, splitting our side into a few of us will become legend. I hear a girl say, there he is, my lover, who is also her lover, I see. I watch a boy dance with sharp and ancient movements to Lil Lucy on the roof of an old Buick. Someone daddy calling out red bone to me from behind a pit thick with smoke and the end of an animal. The tail of the monster that keeps him from me, always out of reach, whips away and never nests at the bend on 18th Street. So there's a film ekphrastic series in the book And all of them are films that feature like a Black film protagonist, but aren't films that are made by Black women. And so it's kind of like a subjectivity recovery series. But the one I'm about to read is Girl 6. If you know the movie, it's a Spike Lee joint. One of the lesser known ones, 1996, Teresa Randall was the actress. But anyway, she's a phone sex operator. And I just wanted to get a little bit into like the perspective of a Black woman doing that kind of work and like change the script to like, sort of like the intimacy of sex to her, like what she's thinking about and her relationship to it and to that kind of work, So it's called Girl 6. I know happiness is chemical and that I exist as an intense state of longing punctuated by quick sparks of contentment, as a body not allowed to pursue its own pleasure, so it becomes a game of finding ways around politeness, my own split open mouth. I tide my bed in salt waves, wait to be satiated, degraded, wet with shame. I offer myself in cyclical failure to no one in particular, a religious practice. I demonstrate 365 maneuvers in swallowing grief, a self-defense discipline. I want to be disciplined for wanting to enjoy the end and shudder of anyone trapped inside my mouth, that wilderness. My heart has gone the distance so soon, I worry. I reprogram parameters for survival and end up at a canyon called segregation of feeling, what I used to know of my body left on the other side. As a woman disenfranchised from touch, that impoverished excuse for kindness. Hide me somewhere really dark. Hide me inside your hand. Turn me like an hourglass. My own recognizable voice giving up inside your scythe-shaped palm, becoming two voices. One, a master of hurt, that's science. One saying yes in the language of gravel, in a register lower than smoke. Okay, I'm gonna do one more. 20 minutes, exactly. I wanted to do a skunk poem. Taneum at lunch said that she had been working on skunk poems. So I was like, ooh, I got a skunk poem. And it's also a sexy poem, which I never read those because I'm trying to be all intellectual and stupid. I feel, like I'm in a safe space reading with Taneum. Get nasty. Bring the smut. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know why I don't think of this. I just feel like I can. This is called Junker. The book is like, it's like horses, yeah, but it's also like these old school vintage muscle cars zooming through the book too. In case you're interested, want to look into it afterwards, put a little coins in it. It's called Junker. That one smelled like a Bradford pear, you said. Set it in the glade of broken downs. After we passed over the skunk pulled back to its muscle and stayed silent about it. Set it linked against the hood, lacing the air with smoke. Under the morning dove in its residual rain, said you liked it. Primal, you called it. Didn't my fingertips glisten with neon dust the whole time? I was a young Tinkerbell. Sometimes I miss her, pollinating everything. Nostalgia is a tease like honeysuckle. The scent never lasts. Dear cricket in the clearing broad day, you bring it all back. I remember my lips curling from my teeth dipping lazy into navy leather seats cut. Clitoris budding into a small fruit. Stay there, don't rush it. Too soon that Chevy will be a memory rusting in the yard. Thank you.
everyone. My name is Dylan Segington. Can you guys hear me all right? All right. I am a creative writing student here, and we've been reading Taneum Bambrick's book, Intimacies Received in Class. I've really been enjoying it and the way that she uses a riveting use of landscape and nature to set the tone for trauma and healing. A crumbled balcony, an old river behind an apartment, and jump ropes over an olive tree are all great examples of the beauty this collection finds in tragedy. So Taneum Bambrick is the author of Intimacies Received and Vantage, which was selected by Sharon Olds for the 2019 American Poetry Review Hunnikin First Book Award. Her chapbook Reservoir was selected by Ocean Vuong for the 2017 Yemenese Chapbook Prize. A graduate of the University of Arizona's MFA program, she is the winner of an Academy of American Poets University Prize and Environmental Writing Fellowship for the Vermont Studio Arts Center and the 2018 Booth Nomination Contest. Their essay Sturgeon was named a notable essay of 2019. Her poems and essays appear or are forthcoming in The Nation, The New Yorker, the American Poetry Review, PEN Narrative, the Missouri Review, 32 Poems, West Branch, and elsewhere. She has received scholarships from the Simonese Writers Conference and the Bread Loaf Writers Conference. A 2020 Stinger Fellow at Stanford University, she was a Dornsife Fellow in Creative Writing and Literature at the University of Southern California, and co-book reviews editor for Pleiades magazine. Without further ado, I present Taneum Bambrick.
Hi everyone, that was beautiful. Dylan is your name, right? Thank you so much for that gorgeous introduction. I brought a lot of things up here, so give me 1 second. I wanted to ask, first of all, how many of you are creative writing students? Oh, a lot of you, cool. How many of you are just here because you're interested in? Okay, cool. 1 person, 2 people. Cool. I like to know, because I sometimes give like prompts or ideas when I do readings. I don't want to do that if you're not interested in that. Does that sound interesting to you? Okay, cool. So Jenny and Joy are 2 people who I've admired for, I think, like 7 or 8 years. And it's really emotional for me to be here reading with them. And it means a lot that all of you came out to hear us because, what is it, Wednesday? Like you could be in bed watching TV or something. So I just really appreciate that. I wanted to say that to start. We decided to read new poems, and I am gonna bring in my phone energy and read my first 2 poems off of my phone. I'm sorry, I don't have them printed out, but I promise the rest will be from my new book. So hopefully that will be less silly. These poems are both breakup poems, so I don't know if you've ever been through a breakup before, but if you have, hopefully these will be relatable for you. So I was going to read, there's one that I was going to read that I was doing like as a safety poem, but Jenny asked that I read a harder one, so I'm gonna read that second. I'll read the easier one first. All right, this poem is one where I tried to be funny. No pressure to laugh, but just letting you know. It's the only time I've ever tried. Drinking for free. I order a cocktail with a cut of red bell pepper. Wrestle its ridged length back using my tongue. The bartender smiles and I smile. He looks younger than me. When I was 24, I loved selling drinks. One with wood smoke. One where you stab the straw through a thin slice of apple to get at an inch of sugar and whiskey. Before my fiance left, he said, "Taneum," while I tried to sleep. At a camp for men, he learned he could never forgive himself for his past while living with me. The bartender hands over a drink he calls the Lady Killer for free. He says I am a relief to talk to, that most women are bisexual and want to be empowered, So resist his attempts to treat them like queens. I pull the sprig of rosemary out of the Collins glass, and the ice sinks. I ask him if he wants to kill me. Killing me is the joke of this drink. Thank you. All right, now I'm gonna read the scary poem that Jenny requested. It's like so extra. It's the title is "This Breakup Has Me Believing in God." God, the canoe-shaped leaves sound like heaven this morning on the cottonwoods outside my window. 2 days of orange smoke. This breakup has me saying, why would God put so much love on my head and cut half the cottonwoods down? I wish I knew God so I wasn't alone. The rubbery smell of the fire and its cracking sounds. The black bark in the grass could be the ends of cigars. My heart coils into the softest brush snake. My pussy aches how it ached in our apartment. God, I was grateful, watching him shake water from his gray hair. In the yard, there is a pile where the dead trees simmer into coals and one rat scurries out. My loneliness is its own boat full of the same multiplied rat. My body belongs to God, or the man who owns this restaurant, poured me an extra shot when I said I felt sad. How was I taken home by that stranger when I could barely stand? I was certain we would plant trees. I would wait and smell the golden sides of his face every morning. I know only God could make this rat scream. Before we broke up, he said he didn't know himself, so he stole what made me. Orbs of ash fall slow, pulling the stink from the sky. I am waiting to trust this moment of feeling. It's easier to ask God why. Thank you. All right, now I'm going to read from my brand new book that just came out a month ago. It's called Intimacies Received. A lot of my friends make fun of me and text me like, I have received your intimacy when I text them. Yeah, so I'm going to read 5 poems from this collection. So some things you need to know to understand, I guess, hearing these poems out loud. I wrote this mostly while I was living in southern Spain, teaching at a high school there, teaching English. And so the poems aren't really about that, but I think that's important context that that's the landscape. And this first poem is thinking about, this is a little bit of content warning, it's thinking about sexual assault and like how when you're a survivor of sexual assault, that can kind of seep into your new relationships. And so this poem is thinking about that idea of like carrying over, seeping in, and how to grapple with that, especially in a second language. Saying I am a survivor in another language. We are in the moment before we decide for the first time to have sex. We fill our mouths with salami and wine. I am careful, peeling wax paper off glazed sponge cake baked by nuns who live down the street. One nun this morning took my hand in hers while she told me that the most important ingredient is the silence of prayer. I cannot tell you this, but I held on to her while she walked me through a village made of thick paper. A train with a real light and human figurines hot glued to look like they were heading somewhere. I was terrified before. I didn't touch a man for 7 years. Asleep, your eyelashes open against my chest. You are the first person to not know this. I'm gonna shift gears a little bit. All right, this poem used to be called Bisexual Erasure. I no longer identify as bisexual, I identify as queer now. So the poem is now just called Erasure. But I'm kind of worried that by taking the word out, I like enacted the thing I was trying to describe. But yeah, this poem, yeah, it's just called Erasure. Eating beside the wives of all his friends, I quietly order 3 oysters. Disgusting, the person beside me laughs while the half shells come over ice on a little glass plate. That smells like a dirty woman. Leaning together, they wonder how nauseating it must be for their husbands to go down on them. I am sitting across from a man who, in bed, turns to ask, "Are you ready?" Sometimes I am. Other times, he reminds me of all the women who came so quickly with him. There is no productivity in imagining the people of my lover's past, or to saying here that I am queer in a way that might puncture the conversation. This next poem, the only thing you need to know is that I use the word have in it, like Halve, but when I read it out loud, it sounds exactly like have. So that's like halfway through the poem, if you hear that word, that's the word that I mean. Driving to Cadiz. A kind of bird like a swan, but more triangular, dives and lifts behind the knives of a tractor. 5 paper airplanes poking at turned dirt. Sometimes he wears the condom for hours after he falls asleep. I feel carried. His body becomes the way I think, not being hungry, but wanting to have something. I've never finished with a man without needing to repeat in my head that I want him inside me. We pass by piles of salt, orange cattle. He asks me to rate the day. We both know there's nothing emptier than recognition in a new landscape. Okay, so now I'm going to read a series of poems that I worked with. I don't know if you've heard this poet, Louise Slick. She was my professor for a couple of years, and she gave us this assignment that really helped me whenever I have writer's block, which is to write a 2-stanza long poem. The first stanza is something that you've seen, like an image or a concrete detail, and the second stanza is something that you've observed. So that could be like a thought or a moment of dialogue that you remember. And so I started that way. I wrote this poem. It threads throughout the book. It's like numbered 1 through 15. And there's a section at the beginning, middle, and end. So I'm going to read the middle and end sections. Another really cute thing that I want to show you is the graphic designer took the strawberries off of the cover and put them like as page dividers in the book, which is nice. I feel like it's like a fun, happy twist where the poems are really sad. So 5. At the top of the bluff, our knee blood collected on the heads of chamomile plants. I know it's wrong. Every time I feel further from an idea of queerness. 6. In a Picasso museum, I saw rape depicted as a series of charcoal drawings. I bent my legs. I learned this in choir practice. If an audience causes you panic, how not to faint. 7. Who was it who laughed when he said, "All independent lesbian films end with the lead going back to men"? More than love, I choose disappointment. 8. Out a tall window, one drift boat turns toward the bank. I love you if I don't think about who you were before me. 9. When I worry you are angry, I am angry. You aren't thinking about me. Someone's favorite music in the car. We watch Sevilla through a bent railing. 10. In a parking lot, head-sized rocks thrown to the weeds. The paddle of a prickly pear snapped down the center, white like styrofoam leaking whiskey. 11. I receive a message where B claims, "You aren't a real artist because you don't write every day." He was the first man I tried to sleep with. When I pushed him off, he came beside me, the stem of an indoor plant, thicker where it bent across the ceiling. 12. Because I asked, C once admitted, that I was not the most attractive person she had been with. She had better sex with someone else. I cried in the bathroom at the coffee shop where I worked until I realized honesty was something I'd never felt. This is the last one. 13. You push your palm against my face in bed. I imagine this is you asking for space. I am trying to warm up your nose, you say. We laughed so hard, but I have shown you something. Okay. A lot of these things I've never read out loud before because my book just came out, so thank you for being the first audience of them. I'm just gonna read 2 more poems. The next poem I'm gonna read is called, it's the title poem, which if you don't know what that means, it just means it has the same title as the title of the book. I'm gonna read, it's also a long section poem, I'm just gonna read the first 2 sections. And this poem is a persona poem. Does anyone know what persona poems are? Yeah? Do you wanna say what they are? You're like, no, I don't wanna do that. I like to ask because the way that I explain them, I feel like always changes. I like to hear how other people explain them. But basically, it's a poem written from the perspective of someone that's like far away from you, the writer, poet. So it might be another person, an imagined person, a hurricane, a frog. Like the voice is something that's not you or close to you. Intimacy is received. Oh, and the persona in this poem is the romantic other, the lover. Having you was like having a baby, a box of matches carrying bees across a lake. I keep the reel of your passport photo in my coat pocket, bent around a coin. There were many nights when you threatened to run away. If falling in love is a decision, I listened for the click in your breath. You aren't old enough to know yet. Few people have your best interest at heart. At heart, I swept the wet glass of you throwing pills across the street. When you were sick, I wrote your weight in kilograms so you wouldn't understand what was happening. 2. Were you with women because you were afraid of men? The men you knew were young. All young men start before they ask. Send boxed flowers, plastic studded in sweat. Every woman I've been with was once with a young man. I understand rape. I would like to introduce you to my family, take you to where Iberian bulls lie still on the beach. We could walk right up to them, huge nostrils pushing out columns of steam. There will be a day when I can no longer. Both of our eyes are green. Between 2 women, isn't an intensity lacking? I broke down the spiderweb banging against your window, its trap of rain and old leaves. With me, you can have whatever history. Don't tell my mother. Let me carry the heaviest grocery bag. Since I've known you, you've seemed afraid of your life. I think I am an example you won't let yourself have. Okay. Thank you so much for listening. There's one more poem. And this is, I have a couple of poems that have dogs in them in the book, which I feel are a little bit of a lighter subject. So I'm gonna end with a dog poem. Oven Street. Beside my apartment, there was a church with 3 lines of gold in its ceiling. A little white dog that bit a door handle, letting herself out to pee. 2 women who every night cried laughing while they smoked. Their smoke, coming in through the window, made it difficult to be on top of you, breathing. When we met, I knew exactly how long I would be happy. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for those beautiful readings and Joy. Would you be so kind as to come back up, both of you, and just answer a few questions? Is that okay? Now I'm just gonna get out of the way. anybody have any questions?
I know y'all want to know something about this. We are teachers, we will call on you.
How's your day going?
You have no idea what I've been through before I got here.
Okay, I have a question for both of you.
Okay, go.
Can you talk a little bit about like what it's like to write about real people? So like your family members, ex-lovers, friends, like how do you kind of grapple with like, you know, the decision to publish, I guess, maybe not the decision to write, but the decision to publish stuff that people might recognize themselves in?
This is talked about a lot. I don't feel like I've ever had an issue with that because, let me be careful because there's a live stream happening. My parents might be.
Live stream.
No, but I read, like my parents are like some of my first readers. Like I read what I write to them often, like kind of as an interview process, and then I'm, trying to there's a certain level of accuracy I want, even if I'm changing little details and stuff like that. And my dad loves to hear about himself. So, if I write a poem about him, it doesn't matter, he loves it, But I also think about what Sharon Oates will quickly correct you if you say your mother, she'll say like, no, the mother, and I'm really like, I get a little perturbed about the collapse of like, the idea about the collapse of this collection into like autobiography, because that's not the genre. The genre is poetry, and it's something different. And, because we might change the detail for the success of the poem, you don't want the pressure of being beholden to like, actual factual details. But even in the first poem in this book, I actually named the speaker Sparkle, and people still don't catch it. But I wanted it to be clear that this is this is based on my experiences, but like, give me a little room, give me a little distance. Don't assume it's like, everything in here is like what I experienced to the T with the people that I, are in my life. But also don't cross me, I'm a writer,
I love that question, and I love your answer. I feel like I just read this book called Body Work by Melissa Pibos. We were just talking about it because we both love. Yes, we both love Melissa Pibos. But in that book, she talks about how cruelty rarely makes for good writing, and that quote has stuck with me. So it's like, are you walking away? It's like drama. I love it. No, it's fine. I like it. But yeah, no. I think that has helped me a lot. So I've been trying I'm in a PhD program right now, so I'm still a student, and I'm looking into being, trying to pursue nonfiction. And every time I write an essay, it feels so scary because poems are like fictional spaces, kind of. They're meant to be read that way, even though like no one does read them that way. But I feel in nonfiction, it's like I think something is true. I think I remembered it how it happened, and then I go back to it the next day, and I realize that I was holding it dishonestly in some way. And then I have to interrogate why. Like, why did I do that to myself and to that other person? So a lot of times I'll show my work to people who I don't talk to, that I'm scared to talk to. Like, I'll be like, this is awkward. We haven't talked in a while, but this poem is about you. How do you feel about it? Or it's inspired by our conversation, or like I'll say something like that to them. And most of the time people don't care. There was one instance where I didn't think to talk to the person because it was someone I knew when I was like in high school. And I was like, why would I ever even read my poem? Like, no one really reads poems that much anyway, so I was surprised. And they came to me and were like, will you tell me next time, just so I don't get surprised by seeing myself myself. And it wasn't, they were not named. It was just like something we did together. We like threw like Skittles at people out of the window of our car, like to be mean in high school. And they were like, they recognized themselves in that image and were like, tell me next time because it was startling. So I think that one thing that I love about writing is it kind of like forces you to be a better person, like to consider all the time how what you say has constant like lasting implications for other people, not just yourself and your family, but like the people around them as well. Yeah. Oh gosh. Any other questions? Oh yeah. You want to? Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Oh yeah, I mean, to some degree, all memory is fiction.
Yeah.
Like memories are not, like I believe, trust me, I've read a lot about this. Like memories are sort of the way we recreate things in our head. And like one of the important parts about interviewing people that you're writing about is like, they're gonna give you a different perspective. It might also be like have an element of fiction. So you're like putting together sort of each person's perspective, truth, recreation of it, and it doesn't, like I think culturally, we have an issue with like the idea that multiple truths can exist at once. Now I want to just say I don't mean in the like Trump tradition, but like, but you know, just in terms of like perspective of how someone felt in a situation, you know, it can be true that they felt a certain way and that you felt another way, and so on and so forth. So, like, I don't know, I love the interviewing process because I want to fit, you know, like multiple truth. I want complexity.
Yeah, so what are some books that you both have read recently that you've been like really, really excited about, either poetry or anything really?
I just read Ama Kojo's
Yes.
what's the book called? The Bluest Nude. Oh my God. It's the book I've been waiting to read. It's so good. And this weird, like, no one knows what genre it really is. The author is kind of like, he won't like commit, he won't tell them. But it's called When We Cease to Understand the World by Benjamin Labatut. And I think it's nonfiction, but again, like what I just said applies to it, I think. But it's sort of like dovetails history, human atrocities at the nexus of art and science, like how we think we have like, this is my reading of it, but how we think we have like we've made some great discovery that's gonna improve humankind, but we cannot see like the successive repercussions, like years later down the road, and the repercussions from the repercussions and all this, you know. So like something like The Color, you know, a Nazi scientist is like hired to make a bomb, and from that comes cyanide, but also Prussian blue. You know, it's like that kind of a thing. I don't know. It might be, a lot of people were like, that book depressed me, and I was like, I'm already depressed, so but if you're into that kind of thing.
Okay, I think I could say so many books. I was thinking immediately of a book called A Shiver in the Leaves by Luther Hughes, and How to Not Be Afraid of Everything, I think is the full title. Yeah, Jane Long. And then Your Emergency Contact as Experience an Emergency by Chen Chen. These are all books that have really long titles, and for some reason I'm like really drawn to that right now. So I think that's great. Like it's hard to find a long title. I think I've tried to do that with both of my books and not succeeded. And I feel like those are really good ones. Like they've been stuck in my head. Yeah. That's my answer. Yes. Any other questions? Thank you all so much for like sticking around for this too.
I also want to say thank you so much, Jenny, for making this happen.
Thank you for being here.
Jenny Goldberg.
Is there one more question, or should we just spend the time buying books?
Everyone's an introvert. They're going to ask us questions after.
Well, let's give Tatum and Joy one more big round. Stick around, buy books, have snacks, get your book signed, come and talk.